From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hello, I'm Gail Shirazi of the Israeli Judaic section of the Asian Middle Eastern Division at the Library of Congress. Welcome to today's presentation, Terrorism in Cyberspace, the Next Generation, a presentation by Professor Gabriel Wyman, sponsored by the Science, Technology, and Business Division and the Hebrew Language Table here at the library, in cooperation with the Wilson Center for the Wilson International Center for Scholars and the Rabin Chair Forum at GW University. Special thanks to the SciTech and Business Division and their wonderful staff, to Dr. Walter Reich of the Rabin Forum at GW, and the Woodrow Wilson Center, and Galina Tevorovsky, and of course, thanks to Gabriel Weimann. Professor Wyman is a world-renowned expert on terrorism and the internet. He's tracked terrorist movements and activities in cyberspace since the 1990s. His new book, Terrorism in Cyberspace, the Next Generation, is being published by the Woodrow Wilson Center and Johns Hopkins University. It's upcoming and should be out in the fall. Gabi is a full professor at the Department of Communications at Haifa University in Israel, and he's currently a fellow at the Woodrow Wilson Center. His interests include the study of media effects, political campaigns, persuasion and influence, media and public opinion, modern terrorism, and mass media. He's authored 8 books, including The Theater of Terror, Mass Media and International Terrorism, and the groundbreaking Terror on the Internet, The New Arena, The New Challenges. He's written many chapters and has more than 160 papers to his name. Professor Weimann received numerous grants and awards from Internet foundations, including his most recent grant from the European Union to study terrorism and radicalism in cyberspace. Again, I'd like to thank the entire team that made this lecture possible, and following the lecture, we'll have time for Q&A. So it's with great personal and professional pleasure I introduce Dr. Gabriel Weimann. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. This is not my first time at the Library of Congress. It's actually the 4th time. And the reason for that is that you know, I've been dealing with terrorists for many years, and trust me, it's easier to deal with terrorists than to say no to Gail Shirazi. And this tiny woman, there is a giant hiding, and a very powerful one. There is no way I could say no. Okay, I'll move from the microphone. I guess you'll hear me. Just one thing before we start. I have a lot to show you and a lot to tell you. And it will be more like a show and tell than just me speaking. So it will be moving fast because I want to have it all done within 40 minutes and leave some time for questions and answers. So don't blink. You blink, you miss 3 pictures. Okay. Terror in Cyberspace, the Next Generation. I'm trying basically to show you some of the recent findings that will be included in the book, in the forthcoming book. In 2006, we published the last book, or the first book, on this issue, Terror on the Internet. Things has changed in these last 8 years, and my lecture today will highlight some of the most important changes that I want to show you. Just to give you an idea how terrorism and the Internet are interconnected, just look at these pictures, and there are some of them, and you'll see this is the new setup of terrorists. Regardless of who they are, what motivates them, what kind of conflict, you'll always find these pictures. I'll show you some of them. Terrorists hiding somewhere, this case, Chechen rebels somewhere, Kalashnikovs, weapon, and a computer. This is a Taliban fighter. Again, terrorist, Kalashnikov, and a computer. Uzbeki jihadist leader, computer. This is Adam Gadahan, now known as the official spokesperson in English for Al-Qaeda. 2 computers in his office, more than any university professor usually has. Does it look like a bunker of a terrorist group? It is. It looks like a computer lab of a university, but this is a Hezbollah bunker, loaded with computers all connected to the internet, and in a minute you'll understand why. Well, this is a computer lab of a terrorist group. This is how it looks like. Masked faces, but computers. Okay, the project that I'm part of started in 1998, so 3 years before 9/11. We've been monitoring terrorist use of the internet for 16 years now. And when I say terrorist websites, the number right now, even not now, last month, was over 9,800, almost 10,000 terrorist websites that we are monitoring 24/7 in 20 languages. Every material there, visual and textual, is downloaded, archived, coded in a computerized digital way, so we can always access it and analyze it. And we analyze it as communication scholars, focusing on the rhetoric, on the persuasive tactics used, and the audiences they target, and so on. Some of these will be presented soon. This research is funded by many academic grants, including one from the USIP, National Institute of Justice, NIJ, here in the States, the Woodrow Wilson Center. The recent one is the EU. I didn't even have time to put it in, but these are our sources. All our findings are reported. They are open. You can find them here at the Library of Congress easily, like this book, Terror on the Internet, and all the publications, papers, books, lectures, special reports, and so on. Believe it or not, even Al-Qaeda reviewed my last book. Okay, and it's not because they were really that eager to help an Israeli Jewish scholar. I think what motivated them, that they felt that they read the compliments to their achievements in using the internet and decided that they should promote a book that compliments them. When we started, we had 12 websites, one language, very primitive, very easy to analyze. After 9/11, the numbers grew rapidly to thousands, and right now, and even not right now, when I say right now, it's December 2013, we already reached 9,800 terrorist websites. Now, on top of it, are all the digital platforms of social media, like YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and we analyze all of them. Now, who are the terrorists online? You don't have to read the list. One word is enough, all. Every terrorist organization is online, most of them in more than one form of presence, more than in one language, using all the facilities that they can find on the internet. So why is the internet so useful for them? Well, it's easily accessed. You can't find them. They can hide in the cyberspace. They can use it to reach huge audiences, especially young people, which are important for them. They can maintain the anonymity, which is very important once you deal with terrorism. It's very fast. There's no way to block them, no way to censor them. And it's a multimedia environment. It's not one more medium on top of the others, but it's actually all media in one platform, because you can download and upload music or text, pictures, books, lectures, and so on. Now, what are they doing on the internet? Actually, everything possible, from scaring us, psychological warfare, from propaganda, raising funds, teaching, tuition, recruit people, mobilize people, look for information, data mining, teach, and even the last one, which will be discussed today as the last topic, see it as a weapon, use it as a weapon to attack infrastructure, to attack banking systems, transportation system, and so on, the so-called cyber terrorism. Now, since I have so little time to discuss so much, I decided to focus on 4 new trends, things that we actually monitored recently in the last years or so, and not to cover the entire spectrum of the activities and presence online. So I will speak about new media meets, new terrorism meets new media, narrowcasting, I'll explain the term, the issue of lone wolves, term used to describe solitary action, or so-called solitary actions of terrorists. And I will argue that behind every lone wolf, there is a virtual pack of wolves that you can find them and track them. They are never alone. And finally, the scary vision threat of cyber terrorism. Okay, let's start. New terrorism meets the new media. Now, all of you, I guess, are aware of all of these new platforms online. Let it be Facebook, YouTube, Flickr, Instagram, Google Earth. Some of you may know even Second Life. All of these are today used by all terrorist groups. They never invented any of these. They never improved any of these. But they learned how to use, I would say, the most sophisticated, innovative platforms, communication platforms of the West to attack the West. So this was the early website of Al-Qaeda. I hope nobody is offended, but it was quite a primitive website. It was called Al-Nida.com, the call in Arabic. It was very simple, only one language. It didn't change a lot. It was very easy to monitor and follow. They didn't really change it a lot. But after 9/11, actually a year after 9/11, this was, by the way, the last time we saw it, last time we downloaded it, July 2002. And then it was replaced by much more sophisticated websites that look like this. By the way, if you look at the cracked computer at the bottom, it has a meaning and the idea of cyber attacks. Al-Qaeda today is running thousands of websites and other platforms, well protected, sophisticated, streaming videos, music, and so on. So it's not the primitive website that you saw in the 90s. But I would like to highlight one of them, which is more important to the trends that we are focused. And this is something that is very alarming. This is a magazine, online magazine, called Inspire. It's in English. You can find it easily online. There are some copies. These are the front pages. They are very sophisticated, targeting English-speaking Muslims and trying to recruit them, to seduce them, to radicalize them. The magazine is very, I would say, glossy, chicy, modern, updated. These are some of the issues published online, all of them. And I would even argue that it's not just nice to look at, it's also influential, it has an impact. And almost all the recent terrorists that were involved, either in attempts to perform acts of terrorism or actually did it, in some ways were linked to this magazine. The last one, by the way, Inspire number 12, came out just a couple of days. What you see now is the fresh new version. So when they moved to the internet, they are now present there in a much more sophisticated way than ever before. Inspire 12, by the way, is calling for car bombs in America. They have a section called Open Source Jihad, like visit our website and we will teach you. Do they have students? Sure, you know them. Remember the two brothers in Tsarnaev brothers right, in the marathon in Boston? I'll show you where they learned the material from. The pressure cooker bombs, you'll see it soon. They were students of Inspire. And now, it's not just a magazine online. All terrorist groups are using the multimedia platforms online. It is television online, like in the case of Hezbollah's Al-Manar television. You can watch it online. Radio online of a terrorist group. Publishing house, so everything that you want to read, download, you'll find online. Even posters of the leader, Nasrallah, if you want to download them, print them, and put them on the walls of your bedroom. They even have a university of jihad, Jihad Academy, when they can teach you the principles and the importance of jihad. Now, to do that, to produce such material, and more sophisticated than ever before, they need an assembly line. They need a production system, and they have it. They have the producers, they have the stars, they have the distributors, people who, because it's not enough to create a website or to launch a magazine online. You need people to access it. You need to publicize it. You need to promote it. So they have the distributors and the promoters. Speaking about the producers, what you see here is a list of Al-Qaeda's online production companies. All of them, by the way, have their own logos. So whenever you see some material, there will be, I can show you later, some of the logos you can identify who did it. So if Zawahiri, or former leader of Al-Qaeda, bin Laden, wanted to produce something online, they usually sent it for those production companies, they edited, and then launched it online, but they needed somebody else, and these are the distributors. People who will not just distribute it, but get the audiences. So let me show you one of them. His name was Irhabi 007. Irhabi in Arabic is terrorist, and 007, you know where it comes. This was his nickname. He was hiding for many years in England, in London, and was one of the chief distributors of the Al-Qaeda propaganda material online. So let's see if we can manage and see the video, short section of it about him.
Over the space of only 2 years, Irhabi 007 became the undisputed, undefeated king of internet terrorism.
This war is not only being fought on the ground in Iraq, but also in cyberspace.
This is the story of a man who called himself Terrorist 007, a man who used the internet to build a network of terror stretching from Iraq to Canada, from the United States to Bosnia, all from his bedroom in London.
He, I think it's not unreasonable to say, provided a link between core Al-Qaeda, the heart of Al-Qaeda, and the wider networks that he was linking into through the internet.
The story of Terrorist 007 reveals how virtual terrorist networks can emerge out of sight of the authorities and not only radicalize young Muslims online, but also help them carry out terrorist attacks. Yunus Souli arrived in London with his father from Morocco in 2001. He enrolled at this small college in the city of London to study IT. He was a loner who soon started using his newfound skills to surf the internet. He viewed footage like this, taken from the cockpit of a US fighter jet, as evidence of a Western plan to wipe out Muslims across the world. It's alleged that the film shows innocent Iraqi civilians being killed in Fallujah. The real facts are unclear.
Impact. Oh, dude.
It was from his bedroom in this house on an ordinary road in West London that Yunus Souli went from being another angry young man to one of the most notorious cyber jihadists in the world. He would use the internet to spread fear and hatred across the globe. By 2004, Souli had assumed the username of Irhabi 007, Irhabi meaning terrorist in Arabic. He posted advice on hacking and uploaded videos of Osama bin Laden onto US government websites. This attracted attention. Aaron Weisberg monitors extremist Islamic activity on the internet from his home in the US.
Well, I first came across him because he was active on a forum on the internet that I was monitoring. It was called the Islamic Terrorist Forum. I mean, that was the official name of the website. And he demonstrated a degree of technical knowledge. He demonstrated a concern on that site for the security of the community, and he demonstrated a high degree of paranoia.
Extremists also began to recognize Souli's potential. As Iraq descended into violence, Al-Qaeda's leaders there contacted Souli. They asked him to build websites for them. Souli's contribution was invaluable, according to one expert on internet terrorism who testified in Souli's trial last year.
Haifa 007 was essentially a fixer for al-Qaeda in Iraq and al-Qaeda elsewhere, an online fixer, someone who took care of tasks that al-Qaeda couldn't do on its own. He had a flair for marketing, and he had the technical knowledge and skills to be able to place this stuff in areas on the internet where it wouldn't get easily erased.
Suicide attacks were filmed in Iraq and emailed to Sooley, who posted them on websites across the world, but these were often closed down. Sooley needed a constant supply of money to pay for new sites. He was helped by this man, Wasim Mughal, a British biochemistry undergraduate, and another man from West London, Tariq Al-Dour. Sooley and Al-Dour never met in person, but Al-Dour had access to over 100,000 stolen credit cards and supplied money to Sooley. By now, Haifa 007 was a central player in al-Qaeda's propaganda war against the West, and he didn't mind who knew it.
Over the space of only 2 years, Haifa 007 became the undisputed, undefeated king of internet terrorism. His name is ubiquitous when it comes to cyber terrorism, modern cyber terrorism.
By the way, here's the guy in the middle. The reason you see all those blood stains on his face, he fought back when he was arrested. So it was really some kind of a 007. So this is a production line. He's in jail, but there are many others, distributors, who replaced him.
So what was he charged with?
Distributing terrorist material, teaching, launching. He was actually even communicating connecting terrorist groups like the Chechen groups to Al-Qaeda and so on. He was the middleman. Let's speak about the new media. YouTube, they tube too. Now, you know the YouTube, and there are many advantages if you think about it from the perspective of a terrorist. It's free to all. You can upload, download, watch videos, whatever you want, even terrorist material. It's very attractive, visual, moving images, easier to find, very easy to find. I'll show you in a minute how. Appealing to young people and allows the users to download it to the telephones, computers, CDs, and distribute it. So let me just give you an example, done actually these days. If you just log on, open YouTube on the web, and you put the words, the search of YouTube, Hamas Islamic Resistance Movement, you'll find, and this is true for last days, almost 1,500, 1,500 videos of Hamas. How about this guy, Awlaki? I'll keep mentioning his name. He's not alive anymore, but his videos are there online. If you just put the words, right now, today, on YouTube, American company, you put tribute to Anwar al-Awlaki. Awlaki was the guy behind many actions related also to the marathon in Boston, related also to the 9/11 case, and to almost all terrorist events in the West. He's the preacher, he used to be the preacher, killed by an American drone in Yemen. Put the words tribute to Anwar al-Awlaki, and you'll find 4,580 videos, all there. Some of the groups launched their own YouTube, like Hamas in 2008 launched their AxaTube. Look at the similarity, note the similarity between the logos. And PalTube in 2011. And today, all terrorist groups, all of them are on YouTube. Thousands of videos. Hezbollah's, Al-Qaeda, plenty of them. This is the Adam Gadahan, the ex-American, converted to Islam and joined hardcore Al-Qaeda. Many, many videos by the Chechen rebels, PKK, the Kurdish underground in Turkey, Taliban's. How about Google Earth? I'm sure that you know it. Now try to, for a second, be a terrorist and think about Google Earth. Isn't it nice to have free satellite services? As a terrorist, you don't need to launch or to buy satellite. All you have to do is go to Google Earth and download the pictures, the maps, satellite pictures, and use it. Now, this is not a theory or a threat. This is already happening. Remember the case, the attack, the deadly attack in Mumbai by Lashkar and Toiba, a jihadi group from Pakistan. Within one day, they attacked several targets in Mumbai, including the Chabad house and killing the rabbi and his family. But if you look at this picture, this was on the telephone, on the cellular telephone of each of the terrorists. They downloaded the picture, the site, the directions, the distances, so they will all attack at the same time. They will know where to go to using the free services, Google Earth. It was used in, I'll really go fast, but they used Google Earth for other actions, and this was one in Basra, Iraq, Abu Ghraib prison, guiding volunteers to join Al-Qaeda group in Somalia, downloading on the website the directions from Google Earth, targeting Israeli targets with missiles from Gaza Strip using Google Earth. And here you see one of the Hamas operatives saying, we obtained the details from Google Earth. And he's sitting watching actually the targeted cities in Israel. And this is the picture that you can find on his screen. Believe it or not, a jihadi website even posted the headquarters of the CIA. How far is it? Like 10 miles from here in Langley, Virginia. Using new media can, by terrorists, it can be used for online training. Terrorists don't need to go to camps and meet and teach each other. They can actually go to virtual camps in cyberspace, where they'll find all the magazines, all the guidebooks, all the manuals, including how to prepare various poisons, how to hit planes, how to attack computer networks, cyber terrorism, something that we will discuss later, how to damage a target with an explosive car, how to build a detonation device. It's all online. They don't need to go anywhere. They can sit at home and join the camp. If we have time, I can maybe later show you, for some of you who may consider a career, though it's a very short career, this is a suicide vest, how to build online, how to build a suicide vest. And it's once you watch it for 10 minutes, you can do it. Let's move to the second trend because we have short time and a lot to see. And this is the term that I want to explain, narrowcasting. Now, in communication, you use the word broadcasting to target as broad as possible audience with the same message. One message, one appeal, one medium to the broadest audience. But modern marketing and modern advertising employing new tactics. They call it narrowcasting. Instead of one message to all, they slice their target audiences into small subpopulations according to age, demographics, education, standard of living, and so on. And each group is getting their own messages on their own platforms. Now, terrorists do the same. Instead of one message to all, they are moving now to very specific and narrowcasting type of propaganda and recruitment online. Let me give you two examples very quickly. One of them, maybe the most alarming, is targeting children online. Narrowcasting, terrorists targeting children for propaganda, radicalization. Please note that I'm not saying youth or young people. I'm saying children, age 3, 4, 5, 6, not much more than that. You may think, well, how can a child at the age of 3 do anything for a terrorist group? Well, if you consider that your struggle is a long-term one, it will take generations until you win. You are thinking about educating the next generation of terrorists. So they use narrowcasting to children. Some of it you may even know of. For example, if you go to target children, try to persuade, to seduce children, let's say that you sell soft drinks, Coke, Nike shoes or whatever, what will you do? You will use childish material, like comic-style stories, prize-winning competitions, a lot of color, moving images, and so on. Now, terrorists do the same, only that they don't sell Nike shoes. They sell suicide and killing and terrorism. Okay, Mickey Mouse. We all know him, right? Mickey Mouse and terrorism don't go together. Well, not really. Hamas started some years ago their own Mickey Mouse. They called it Farfour. He looked like the Mickey Mouse we all know. The Mickey Mouse that we know was, of course, a very gentle one and never involved in violence and not in politics and certainly not in terrorism. But Farfour was very different. I won't show you the entire movie, films, but some captured stills from it. The Mickey Mouse, the Farfour one, is a really vicious one. He's a terrorist. He's speaking about fighting, sacrificing himself, and he does it for the ruling of the world by Islamic leadership. So he's really preaching. And this is for very, very young children. Now, the Walt Disney people didn't like the idea that Mickey Mouse is being used by a terrorist group. Certainly, since they were not paid any royalties for that. So they started threatening Hamas, and as a result, Hamas decided, well, let's put an end to it by killing. So Farfour was beaten to death because he was interrogated by an Israeli agent, and he was killed and became a martyr. Replaced, well, you may know the childish figure of Maya the bee. Well, they have their own jihad bee, Nahul, again, become a suicide terrorist. Nasty messages, very violent one, not childish at all. Replaced by Bugs Bunny, Hamas Bunny, Asud, again. One by one, each one of them was a childish figure, appealing to children, but selling the messages of death, suicide, killing, terrorism. The recent one is Nasur, Teddy Bear, again, a nasty character. Slaughter, killing, destruction, suicide. The next one, I have to apologize, this is not an easy one to see, comes also from Hamas websites for somewhat young, older children that can read and write. This is a website, a very childish, colorful, moving images, cheerful. And if a child usually at age 6 to 8, can read simple Arabic, all of these are links to stories. He will go like this, among this, he will surf those pictures, but finally, he will hit this picture. A child. And this is no fiction, and this is not cartoon, this is real. This is the beheaded body of a terrorist, female terrorist in Jerusalem, 2004, in the French Hill. So a child that will go into these websites and surf the stories will finally end up looking at the dead body and a glorified suicide bomber. Children, computers, games. Of course, that's another method. So many terrorist groups launched their own games to teach children how to use those games, desensitize them to the use of violence, to killing, and even to suicide. And even Hezbollah, who launched one of those games, says this is a mental and personal training for those who play it. This is how they see it. And some games, it started in Iraq with the quest for Bush, where leaders were targeted and the child gets points for killing American leaders or soldiers. And there are so many games, I just give you some examples. Al-Qaeda Strike 1.4. Children are also used to promote martyrdom themselves, to preach for it, to play with it, to show it, and to glorify it. If you remember, and I will not show it to you, but the first hostage, American hostage captured in Iraq in 2004 was Nicholas Berg. He was executed, beheaded by the Al-Qaeda group. This is one frame from the picture. And the only reason I'm showing it, the video is still there. There's no way to block it. And thousands of websites carry it. The bloody, gruesome execution of a helpless, actually the beheading, seconds later after this picture. But the amazing and maybe the shocking thing was to see online children, Arab children, taught to play the game of execution, imitating the same act of beheading and hostage. It is clear that they saw those videos because they do it second by second. The impact is clear. More and more children are involved in suicide bombing. More and more children are recruited in Afghanistan, in the Maghreb, and so on. Another example, very rapidly, women. Narrowcasting to women. Websites designed for women. Al-Qaeda has their own magazine online, Al-Khansa. This is the first issue. They have more now, in pink. Targeting women, calling women to join, to sacrifice themselves, to support their spouses, to educate their children, and so on. And you have websites, terrorist websites, designed for women, for female jihadists. Even teaching them how to be cyber fighters, how to use computers as a weapon. Zawahiri, now the leader of Al-Qaeda, replacing bin Laden, his wife has a website online preaching terrorism. Zawahiri's wife, and this is how the website looks like. This image shown online is a good example, and maybe a troubling one, of a mother sending her son to become a suicide bomber. It's fake. This is not really an explosive bed. But the message there is that the mother is behind the action. It gives legitimacy to the action, and even tells young people that your parents will be supportive. Then again, we see rising numbers of women involved in terrorism, and especially in suicide terrorism. Let me move to the third one, the last before, and this is the issue of the lone wolves. A new trend in modern terrorism. It seems like lone wolf terrorism is individuals, not groups, not organizations, not movements, but individuals launching their own terrorist campaign by themselves. Well, I would argue that they are not really alone. In nature, by the way, a wolf will never hunt alone. They can't. They will die. A lone wolf will die. They need to hunt in packs, and the same about lone wolves in terrorism. The only thing that you don't see the virtual pack, but it's there. It's online. First of all, we have to realize, as President Obama, this seems to be now the new trend in modern terrorism, the most alarming one. And we see more and more cases of those lone wolves. But we also see that there's a line behind them. There are footprints in the snow, if you want, of the virtual pack behind them, guiding them, leading them, teaching them, seducing them, and launching them. Now, some examples that you may remember: Major Nidal Hassan, who shot some of his colleagues in camp. Britain's lone wolf, there are several of them. All of these are lone wolves. And actually, almost all cases in the West today were done by lone wolves, including this murder in London, the beheading of a British soldier. But, as I said, they are called online, they are recruited online, they are taught online, they are even launched online. Remember the Inspire magazine? This is one of the articles in the Inspire magazine, targeting Arabs in the US and in Canada. I am proud to be a traitor to America, preaching to those that are here but feel alienated, feel that they are second-rate citizens, feel that they don't belong, and trying to motivate this frustration, social frustration, to terrorism. Al-Qaeda is using all the social media, from Facebook to Twitter to YouTube, to reach those lone wolves, radicalize them online, teach them online, and finally launch them online. This is the Boston Marathon attack in April, just a year ago. Killing people, including later policemen. These are the two brothers, you see them, the Tsarnaev brothers, picked up by a camera. Lone wolves? Not really. What did they use for a bomb? They used a pressure cooker. But these guys were never in a terrorist group, never educated by terrorism, never went to a camp. How did they know? Well, we know now, because we can go back and check the footprints in cyberspace and find that they reached this website, Al-Qaeda's Inspire magazine, teaching how to build a bomb from pressure cooker. Exactly the way they did. You have all the instructions there. Remember the open source jihad? They used it, they followed it, they activated it. And so did many of the others. They are taught online, they are communicated online, they are launched online. There is a virtual pack behind them. And Al-Qaeda launched only last year a pocketbook for lone wolves. Again, self-radicalization, self-teaching, and launching. Awlaki, this famous guy, even after his death, is still active on many of those social media. Believe it or not, they are even calling, send us questions and he will answer. Of course, there are people who answer in his name, but the idea that he's still there, or his spirit is still guiding, and he's glorifying the wolves, not just calling, but glorifying those that were active, including, in this case, Nidal, and this is from Inspire number 11. Look at this picture and the message here. This is the dead brother. Among the two of them, one of them was killed. And he looks like somewhere in heaven, in the skies, surrounded by angels and so on. I won't read you all the list, but almost all terrorists, lone wolf terrorists, were somehow linked to Inspire magazine, to Our Lucky. And if you draw a map of the online connections, you'll find that all the lines lead to one guy in the middle, Our Lucky. And all done online. He never met them. He never guided them personally. It's all done by online messages. So let's get to the last one. And this is the worst news that I have. I saved, if the other was very cheerful, this is certainly not. Cyber terrorism. What is cyber terrorism? It's a combination of cyber and terrorism. This is launching attacks by terrorists online. What can be targeted? As we will see, there are many targets, and we are very vulnerable online and very dependent on computers. Now, why should terrorists use cyber warfare? Because it's actually, if you know how to do it, it can be easy to do. Our societies, all modern societies, rely heavily on computers, from libraries to transportation, from infrastructure to monitoring planes and airports or subways. Everything is dependent on computers. I'm quoting President Obama, who's probably quoting his advisors about the risks of cyber terrorism. Now, what can be targeted? The list is very long. But of course, news communication facilities, transportation, civilian companies, banking systems, pharmacies, hospitals, they all rely on computers. And not only companies, but power grids, transportation system, water authorities, nuclear facilities, all controlled by computers. So it seems like something very alarming, but something maybe distant, something in the future. Maybe we should not worry about it. Well, not really, because it's already happening right now. Let me explain one of the scariest scenarios, and this is the issue of botnet. Anyone knows the term? Botnet means that we may call it a zombie network. Let's say that this is you sitting somewhere, wherever you want it, and you want to launch a cyber attack that will actually activate thousands of computers. But you don't have thousands of computers. You are all by yourself. So what you do is you spread a virus to many computers all over the world. The virus is a slipper type. You don't see it, you don't feel it. By the way, maybe many of you, without knowing it, are victimized by that. Your computer may be having that virus. It will not do anything. It will not damage your computer. You will never know. It will not slow it down. You will never know it. Unless one day that guy in the middle, will decide that he wants to attack a target, and he will send a message to all of those botnets, and they will start sending a message to the targeted computer that will be flooded with thousands of messages, thousands of computers attacking at the same time, causing a crash to that computer system. Is it, again, a nightmare, a probable scenario? No, it's happening. First of all, this is just to show you the amount of botneted computers. And we are talking about 6 million infected by botnets in 6 months only. It was used. It was used 7 years ago. There was a case in Estonia, just very briefly. The whole case was about, Estonia is a small country near Russia, and there is a tension between, as you know, between Russia and some of the neighbors, including Estonia. Now, in April 2007, exactly 7 years ago, the Estonian government moved a memorial statue and caused a huge criticism coming from the Soviets, from Russia. As a result, there was a botnet attack on Estonia, causing a huge collapse of the entire system. Everything collapsed in Estonia. This was the junk messages coming from all those networks. And for weeks, the entire country was paralyzed. No banking, no transportation, no government, no news. All the organizations, you can look at the list of targeted facilities. And it was very clear that it was all organized, because if you follow, you don't have to understand the chart, but if you follow the time, you can see that all the attacks came at the same time. Like somebody activated all those botnets, all those infected systems. Somebody sophisticated, probably Russian hackers working for, I don't know who it's Russian authorities, but it was certainly well coordinated and very sophisticated attack. By the way, they repeated it a year later when they attacked Georgia. Before the Russian troops went into Georgia, they attacked the computer system. So cyber threat is not really something that may happen in the future. It happens here, and it happens every day, and there are thousands of cases every day of attempting to break into American systems by cyber attacks. And you can see the testimonies, and these are more recent, from Robert Mueller, the FBI director at that time, in 2012, about the growth, about the threat. And let me just conclude with showing you, you don't have to read the numbers, but this is the amount, or the number, rising number, of cyber terrorist attacks on American facilities. You can even look at the distribution. This was in 1 month in June 2012. Industry, government, education, online services, these were targeted by. Now, who may it come from? It may come from terrorists, from hackers, criminals, and states. States do cyber attack too. Remember, somebody attacked the Iranian facilities with a virus, Stuxnet, right? That was probably a state, or maybe more than one. But how about the alarming situation when you get a combined, a joint cooperation, joint venture, let's say states and terrorists? Iran has hackers unit in the Iranian army. Iran is also supporting terrorist groups. How about Iran launching a cyber attack through their proxies, terrorist proxies? How about terrorists recruiting professional hackers, motivating them either by money, by ideology, religion, prestige, or whatever? Or terrorists and criminals cooperating, professional hackers, or professional cyber hackers, and terrorists. We certainly see a growing number of cyber attacks on American facilities, and the number are just growing. So let me conclude here with 2 recommendations, and both of them are important. The first one has to do with the new arena that we are now facing. It's not more a war of tanks and rifles and so on. We are fighting against terrorism, a new type of war. And we need new soldiers, new armies, new training, new weapons, and new defense mechanisms, including monitoring terrorist activities online, like the NSA is doing. However, and here comes my second recommendation, and please remember that I always combine the 2 of them. All these activities, all this new war on terrorism must be regulated, should be regulated, including the NSA's activities online or monitoring telephone conversation and so on. We need the monitoring, but we also need it to be regulated. We need regulation that will say who can access what, who can download what, and who can access the data that was archived. If you don't do the, I would say, the regulation of the monitoring, we may end up paying heavier prices for terrorism than just in terms of terrorism, but also in terms of our civil liberties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabi. We do have time for questions, and Gabi, would you please repeat the question so it goes into the webcast?
Yeah. Okay, I repeat the question. David asked about regulation. What is the state of regulating the activities now? and maybe a comparison between Israel and the States. Let me say that I don't know much about what is done there. I'm monitoring more the bad guys than the good guys, but at the same time, I'm quite aware of the various measures used online. We see them, starting from blocking website, hacking website, interfering with the material online, and so on. We see the counter activities. I'm not quite sure that all of them are productive, like removing websites and blocking them doesn't work. They re-emerge sometimes very. Now, NSA so far was not really regulated, and you know the leaks coming from Snowden and others that provided information on the size and the depths, I would say, of monitoring telephone conversation and so on, only shows you that some of the recommendations that the first one, that we should monitor, are there. So far, I don't see any regulation. Now, let me give you, David, the regulation that I'm looking for. And it's not that, I'm really thinking that we are moving there, because the growing criticism of NSA for various circles, social circles and political circles, will lead them, and it is leading President Obama to launch some of those measures. But let me give you an example that all of you know, and then apply it to the internet and to the NSA. When you go to the airport, you are victimized by TSA, right? You're harassed because they ask you to turn around and lift and open and take off your shoes and your belt, and they scan you, but you are willing to do that because you are willing to sacrifice some of your civil liberties, some of your privacy for the sake of security, but you want it to be regulated. Not anyone can tell you go and run naked in the corridors of the airport, right? You know who is allowed to do what to whom? He needs to be authorized for that. He needs to be officially wearing some kind of uniform. And you know what they are allowed to do to you, right? Why don't we have the same rules applied to the internet? Who is allowed to do what to whom? Who is allowed to access? And this will remove a lot of the problems associated now with the wide war that is launched there online. Now, what the Israelis and the Americans are doing, well, I'm not an expert on that. I can only tell you that they're doing much better than they did some years ago. However, it's always we are always trying to follow the terrorists. That is, they are always one step ahead. Like they learn to use the YouTube, we start thinking, what can we do against it? They start to use Facebook and Twitter and Second Life, which I didn't speak about, and Instagram and Flickr, and whatever facilities that we provide them. Maybe we should start thinking ahead. What will be the emerging platforms of communication that are now being designed, and how can we prevent them before it's launched to be used or abused by terrorism? This is, I think, the next challenge for us. Anonymous, the activities of Anonymous. Joshua is asking about them, and I would look at Anonymous from the perspective of terrorists. They are certainly a good lesson for terrorists who look at the success of this group, who see the weapons used, who see the measures used, who see the impact. And I can tell you, when I'm looking at cyber terrorism, one of the reasons that I'm worried about is because you need two conditions. You need the motivations and you need the capabilities. Now, in the past, terrorists were not that interested in cyber terrorism, and certainly not capable of doing it. Recently, first of all, they are very motivated to use it. I mean, we are analyzing the chatter, and we see how often they manage. And they refer to the case of Anonymous. So they're certainly more motivated. And remember, if you want to be more effective in 9/11, what can you do? How can you be more effective than killing 3,000 people in one day, a couple of hours? You need to move to a higher sphere. That's cyber terrorism. So motivation is there. How about capabilities? Here they look at those hackers thinking about educating their own people, recruiting their own people like that, either by ideology, religion, or money, or joining forces with hacking units that are operated by states. I mentioned Iran. How about Syria? SEA doesn't probably tell anything, but this is the Syrian Electronic Army, a unit, electronic hacking unit of the Syrian army operated by the Syrian president, targeting Americans. Now, only recently, some banks, news agencies, were attacked by a cyber attack. In September 2013, only some months ago, the Navy computer system were hacked by the Syrian army. It took them 6 months to remove the virus from the Navy. Check it. You can find the reports on Wall Street Journal reported twice. First, the penetration, and second, the failure to remove it. So they are capable of doing it. And certainly they look at Anonymous and say, if it works for them, it can work for us. The question is focusing on the use of Inspire and what does it bring, or what is the message for American Arabs or Muslims especially young Muslims in the US. First, it's very interesting. Some of the articles there have nothing to do with terrorism. It's more like social bonding. You feel that you are alone, you feel that you are isolated, come to us. Come, brother, be one of us. We will provide you a virtual community. You can talk to us, you can send questions, we will answer. Don't feel alone. So some of the messages do not do anything with terrorism. They are simply seductive in a social way, social bonding, providing the community. Some of them, I would say, are channeling existing frustrations. You are not really an equal citizen. Your chances of good life are slim. Come to us. We feel like you. So, again, it's not always preaching for terrorism. Some of the Inspire magazines, there are already 12 issues. Some of them are more, I would say, instructions, like how to build a bomb, how to build a bomb in your mom's kitchen. That's one of the titles of the articles, including the pressure cooker. So there are many articles there, some of them religious, some of them social, some of them practical, different levels. But as you see, almost all of the attempts of terrorism in the West were somehow related to that online magazine. So it is effective, it has an impact. I will guinea pig that question and show you one more video. Counter campaign is not just using soldiers or virtual soldiers or digital soldiers and launching a campaign to shut down or to block or to spread viruses. There's also the notion of sending a counter narrative. Using the same platforms, using the same measures, using the same social media, but not to preach for death, destruction, and terrorism, but to preach for hope, life, happiness, optimism. This is another scenario. Let me show you, and I hope you don't mind. It's a very short video, and this is a video of the counter-narratives, like launching a campaign against terrorism, against the use of terrorism, targeting young people, but with a different message. Say No to Terrorism is the name of the campaign. It is not really revealed who is behind it. According to our analysis, it's the Saudis are doing it. It's a whole campaign. I just showed you one video. I think it relates to your question. I think the only way to fight back is not to believe that you can shut down the internet. In one lecture, somebody asked me, why don't we shut down the internet and restart it again? There's no way to go back. I mean, it's going back to Stone Age. There's no way to change history. But we may think of using the same platforms to appeal to the same target audiences with different narratives. And this is one example. We are actually, it's very new, and we are now monitoring it and studying and trying to see what's the impact. But it is certainly one of the measures used to counter terrorist use of the internet. Well, that's a question, an empirical question. We have to look for it. But let me tell you, it's not only one magazine, and it's not just Surge and Inspire. There are hundreds of them, and various terrorist groups in different languages. Now, you may, by the way, question, why would they publish English-speaking magazine to Arabs? Don't forget that they are preaching to young Arabs in America. Some of them never spoke one word in Arabic. They don't even know. Some of them are second, third generation in America. They call them, for example, to come and join the war in Syria. For Al-Qaeda, of course, not for the Syrian president. So there's a long list of magazines, of video clips used by terrorist groups. So it's not only one, but you're right. There is some feeling of escalation. They become more violent, more threatening, and they certainly go higher in terms of victimization. And cyber terrorism is considered one of the, which was not there like 3-4 years. They never discussed it. Now they do. And Tudok Moja will beszélni, Tudok. This is Hungarian, okay? I'm just trying to impress the audience with my Hungarian is my first language, and Anna, well, you can tell her accent is from the same place that my parents came from. This is a good question, Anna, and it relates. You have to realize that this arena, the online arena, is open not only to terrorists, but to radicals from all sides. And when Gail introduced me, she mentioned the EU grant that we got. Let me only say that it's $60 million euros that we received for a 5-year project involving 8 nations in Europe. Why is the EU so bothered? Not about terrorism, about radicalization online. This is what they are. They are worried that political extremism from the right, extreme left, religious or not religious, political or not political, will use the same platform that I showed you here. So the risk is not, terrorism is just one section that I focus on. But the threat may come from different groups that are coming from extreme right, extreme left, what have you. So whatever I suggest, and I'm worried about terrorism, is related very well to other groups, including neo-Nazis and fascists in Europe and here. This was, by the way, that the Europeans decided to spend so much money. Not because they thought that this is an important academic issue, because they are scared, because they are threatened. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.